So, see any good moves lately? Welcome back to episode 6 of See Any Good Moves Lately. I am your host, Joey Operding, and today I am joined by a guest of only the most immaculate magnitude. That's right, I could only be talking about the one and the only Sarah. Sarah, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. How have you been doing?
Life is amazing except for all the things that aren't amazing. But if you take those out, it's going pretty good. So, yeah, I can't complain. This was an interesting episode of Survivor because we have merged a Toried
Yeah,
here
we
in
operated.
Survivor 48. A staple of the new era, a staple of modern Survivor.
Mm.
And we are going to talk all about it here on See Any Good News Lately. But first, before we get into that, Sarah, I just want to ask, what are your thoughts on the season so far?
I think the season's pretty good so far. I feel like it has been one of the more interesting pre-merges of like recent history. Um, Mostly because of a lot of weird decisions, but a few times because of like actual good moves and gameplays that happen.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of the season, I'm kind of mixed on the season right now, to be totally honest with you.
Mhm.
Because on one hand, there's stuff that I really like I really enjoy Say's presence in the show, and there's a lot of sort of fun stuff like Eva and Joe's dynamic is really sweet, and like that's not something we've ever seen on the show before.
Mhm.
David's obsession with milk is entertaining in its own way.
Yep.
But there's also a bunch of stuff that's sort of been souring me on the season, namely stuff like what happened in the last episode before this one, like Bianca and Justin going home because of the journey that they
Yeah.
had no say in
Mhm.
not playing on, and that whole thing has kind of been a big asterisk on the season to this point. But I
Mhm.
don't know how you feel about that.
Oh yeah, I feel pretty similar. Like I think that it is also frustrating. I feel like I saw somewhere before that like the new era of Survivor is a lot just like Mario Party, where random things just kind of happen and there's not really a strategy. And I feel that I think for one of the first times I feel that with the actions of like production, but also with the players. Like playing with Cedric feels like you are just playing Mario Party. Like you tell him that you lost a vote and then he votes you out. You don't tell him that you've lost a vote and he votes you out. Like if you can't make sense of people, it's really hard to know how to strategize around that. Um, and you already can't really strategize around the mechanics of the game and whether or not you roll dice well.
Yeah, I adore that analogy. I mean, you just think about a journey. What is a journey if not landing on a happening space, and you have no idea what's going to happen to you,
Yeah.
or a Bowser space for that matter. But yeah, no, it's true. Like that's the thing with the new era that like is a little people are mixed on for obvious reasons. Is like there's way less autonomy with how you play your game, especially with the journeys. Like part of that is just the nature of advantages, and the more advantages that are in the game, the more like ways you can play it in, the more ways you can get screwed over.
Mhm.
But like it is true that like with more and more of your vote is your currency stuff that we see nowadays, like people like Bianca just naturally they have less of a chance.
Yeah.
And even people like Justin, who are theoretically in great spots,
Yeah.
also theoretically have less of a chance because people like Mary can successfully play their shot in the darks, and oops, now you go home.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah. I
it
also think that the vote with Justin, even though that wasn't this episode, like I kind of feel like the only person that should have been viable to go home is Cedric because
yeah
of how ties normally work. So I think that he shouldn't have been able like to vote stay out in general, but he probably should have just gone home.
yeah. I mean, once again, that speaks to the level of chaos that we're dealing with this season, and that's something I do enjoy. That there seems to be a lot more chaos than we normally see in Survivor seasons, because of Cedric and Say mostly.
Yeah.
Um, but all that being said, I mean, we did get a say in a Cedric vote at the last tribal council before this, and that was the Bianca vote, which was a very interesting one. A
Mhm.
2-1-1 with Bianca on the outs.
Yeah.
What do you think about this move?
I thought it was bad for most people. Like, it felt like something of, like, just because you can do it, like, why are we?
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it doesn't benefit Chrissy, I don't think at all, because now you still have Cedric and Say, and what if you didn't enter Mergatory this episode? It doesn't help Cedric because Cedric again lied and withheld from Say, and so, like, why? And then I just don't understand, like, who thought they would benefit from it. It just seemed like something that they could do, and then they did.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think when we had Nick on for the last episode, we were talking about like, oh well, this must have been like a smart move by Cedric because Cedric was totally like in with the
Mhm.
original Siva members, and they totally did this on purpose. And like Bianca was always going to go home. And I just had kind of assumed that that was the case. Like
Yeah.
Cedric was working with them, and maybe Mitch like threw a vote to just in case of like an idol or something. I
Yeah.
don't know, but I don't think that's true. By all accounts, it seems like Cedric got told by Bianca that she didn't have a vote, and he was like, "Okay, let's vote her out." And
Yeah.
I don't know how he managed to convince Chrissy to like go along with it and be
Mhm.
like, "Hey, let's get rid of Bianca right now instead of the alternative." But props to him, I guess. But it seemed very much spur of the moment. So I don't know what's going on with Cedric. I don't know.
I don't either. I think that, it's a little bit to me like Banu, where, like, I think Banu, you really easily see, "Oh, you love Survivor, but, like, you're not really meant for this game." I think Cedric is a similar type, but, like, it is harder when people seem like they should be good at something, it's harder to then notice and call it what it is, which is, like, you're just not gonna do well with the mechanics of this game, which I don't think we talk about enough with any of
Yeah,
these shows. Like, just because you love Survivor or Big Brother or The Traitors doesn't mean it'll be good at the mechanics of how that operates. And it's okay to like something and not be good at it.
yeah.
Like,
I
just
mean,
watch it.
most people who go on Survivor are not, are not like amazing at it. I mean, there's only one winner at the end of the day. Like,
Mhm.
everybody has flaws in their gameplay. Even people we've seen plenty of people who've gone on the show and been like, I love the show. It's my favorite thing. It's Survivor. It's my life. And then they, flamed out in like an
Yeah.
episode or two. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, Hannah Rose, huge fan of the show.
Yeah.
Quit. Sean Edwards, also 45, huge fan of the show.
Mhm.
Quit. I mean, since the new era, it's like mostly super fans. We see that a lot. We see
Mhm.
people who are very passionate about the show. I mean, Kevin, just this season, huge fan of
Mhm.
the show,
Yeah.
got voted out. I mean, like this is natural. Like this
Yeah.
happens. Like not everybody can be great at the show. That being said, Cedric is still here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I don't even think people are weaponizing his incompetence at this point. I think that
No,
it's just like, again, I don't know what decisions everyone is making. It's just very weird. And like I don't love that. Like I don't when I'm watching reality TV shows, like I'm not really here for like chaos and weirdness. Like if it's serving a purpose, then like sure, kind of like Andy, like, playing down how much he's thinking through things and like
sure.
purposely doing something kind of crazier. That's fun for me, but like I don't really like characters like Rome or Say. I'm not really invested in like those types of things. And so it's just I don't know what people are doing with Cedric. I don't know if people are and like we're not getting any confessionals about it either, which is like
No, we're not. Yeah,
bothering me. Like I feel like the thing with Survivor that I like the most is when people do something that is suboptimal and they tell us exactly why they're doing it. But like if they don't know what they're doing, then like I don't respect it as much. Like if Chrissy came on and said, I think this was silly, but like whatever, like now Say and Cedric will go after each other and like I'm gonna do this in the background. I would have been like, great, this makes perfect sense why you voted Bianca off. Great. I'm on board. But there's nothing like that. It's
yeah,
just like, well, this is the move we did, and this is the move we're standing by. And I'm like, is it? Why?
yeah. I want to speak on what you said about confessionals because I was about to say the exact same thing. I don't. Cedric has made a few odd decisions at this point. Like at least decisions that you could theoretically question the motives of why he did it, with voting out Justin and then voting out Bianca. But neither time have we really gotten any true explanation as to why he did it.
Mhm.
Cedric gave the explanation this episode of like, well, when Bianca told me, I realized that she'd been playing both sides and was lying to both of us.
Mhm.
But that doesn't really explain why he voted her out instead of sticking with the plan and voting out Say.
Mhm.
And it didn't really explain how he was able to get Chrissy on his side too.
Mhm.
Um, but as you said, the only person who is saying, "Yeah, I don't like the way Cedric's playing," or Cedric's a chaotic force, is Say, who, to your point, is a very chaotic force herself.
Yeah.
And I imagine when she says that to people, it's sort of like a boy cried wolf situation where it's like, all right, how much stock do I really put into that?
Yep.
So, yeah.
And even with that, like her reasons for it are not the reasons that other people would go for. Like, say say to me feels like someone, maybe to put this in like some clock tower terms, like someone that like has their own world based on their own, like I know from my role that this is happening, but like is not doing any work to sell it to anyone else or make it seem like this is a good kill or a good world to follow, and is just
Mhm.
expecting, because I'm saying this is what's going to happen. And so if you, even if it's true, broken clock right twice a day type thing, like yes, with Cedric he is playing chaotically and like you are saying that to people, but the reasons why you're saying it to people, they're not going to be able to read. They weren't at the tribal council, they don't, or either tribal council, I guess. And so like you just saying that, you sound bitter. Like you sound like were scorned
Yeah.
by an ally, which you were, but like no one cares if you're scorned by an ally. Like that's not going to get them to vote off Cedric or not trust Cedric.
Yeah, it's a really weird position for Cedric to be in, honestly, because like to us, the audience, it feels like he should have no chance.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It feels like he should have no chance to win. But if you look at the actual game state, to jump ahead a little bit, like now that we're at the merge for real, like there almost everybody is a bigger quote unquote threat than
Yeah.
Cedric is. But Cedric also has had more autonomy in the game than anybody else has, and has been able to pull off moves that nobody else has.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think about the people still left in the game. Who is less of a threat? Who's more likely to make the ends than Cedric? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I've been looking. I can't think of anybody.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe Mary. I don't know. It's tough to say,
Yeah,
but
even then, like I think I was gonna say Mary too, but if it is Mary, then Mary is doing it because she's purposely trying to play that way rather than Cedric, who is just like genuinely just a zero vote finalist. Like,
yeah, yeah. Except, is he a zero vote finalist?
I mean, I don't know,
That's the
Gabriel
thing.
won somehow, but
Yeah, I here's the thing. People are listening to him. People still are listening to him and are still like, I want to trust you. I want to work with you.
Mhm.
People are listening to him when he says we should vote out Bianca right now, like 5 minutes before tribal council.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see. Yeah.
Well, I think it's also, I mean, that's kind of a new era thing, right? Where if you stick your neck out and say a name, then like normally you're the one that's caught more often. And
Yeah.
so maybe we're not getting confessionals about this, which is why it's annoying. But like, if everyone is listening to Cedric purely because then Cedric is the one with his neck out, like, I respect that a lot because that's like a little bit what like a bunch of the players from last season were trying to do. They were trying to, be the silent leader, the puppeteer of everyone, but like not actually the one that people thought of. And Cedric is perfect for that.
It's interesting when you say because he's throwing names out, when really, if you look at it, he's kind of doing the opposite. He's
Yeah.
kind of letting other people throw out names first. Like I think about Kevin. He
Mhm.
was the one throwing out like, "Hey, we should get rid of blah blah blah." And with in the case of Bianca, she was the one pitting Say against Chrissy and all that.
Mhm.
And really, Cedric has been responding to other people throwing names out.
Mhm.
The person throwing names out really has been Say, who is getting targeted. But he has been able to, I really don't know if it's intentional or not, but he has been able to hide behind Sei so well because
Mhm.
she's such a good shield for him this
Yeah.
entire game so far.
It
So,
is very true, and I think which is the other thing that's annoying, 'cause you're completely right, like, he is not the one throwing out names, but he is falling as the archetype of that kind of character somehow still.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
he's just an enigma. Like, I don't understand what he's doing or why he's doing it or how he's still doing it, but, like, yeah, I think Cedric is going to be there probably until Final 3.
Yeah, which is wild, but yeah, I really don't see Cedric actually winning, but I think at this point, unless he gets screwed over in this split tribal council,
Mhm.
that's going to happen next episode. I I wouldn't be surprised if he gets way further than I would have thought, like episode one or whatever. So
Yeah, he's gonna get as far as people will let him. The only thing that I think would stop Cedric is if people, like, again, similar to last season, realize, like, you're taking a spot in the finals because you're just gonna not get votes, and then people specifically try to get him out because of that, but, like, unless people do that, he's just sliding by. Because why would you vote out Cedric when you could vote out name any other player?
exactly. Like at this point, especially since it's three original Vula, right?
Mhm.
Um, like there's even less of an incentive to go after them
Yep.
because inevitably the game will always turn to numbers versus numbers.
Mhm.
And I mean that's part of the reason why, Charity went home this episode is the idea of like, well, she's on the tribe with the most people.
Yep.
We need a consensus vote, like something that happens often in the mergeatory,
Yeah.
that sort of idea. And people on the tribe that fails the most have two things. They have, the less incentive to get rid of them because they're smaller and, can't really band together the same way. And also they've been to the most tribal councils, so they know how to navigate it a little better than someone like, say, Charity, who had
Yeah.
never been to a tribal council before.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Charity was always a goner. The only saving grace that, Charity could have had was, say, just being there.
Mhm.
Um, I think Rob said it on, like, the know-it-alls of the new era is just, you do whatever the consensus is, you do whatever it's the most like a big brother vote. Like, you get
Yeah.
rid of whoever is the least fun to live with.
Yeah, that's kind of true. Or whose game is the least impactful to everyone.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that would be interesting because I can't really think there probably aren't that many mergatory boots. I'll look at it a little later when
Mhm.
we really get into it. But yeah, I really don't think there's been many mergatory boots that haven't just been consensus. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, this is true with most games, most types of things like this, where the more you add that is like power, 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 this is overwhelming. Like, what are you gonna do? The monster's there. Like, people think that it will create, a lot of good gameplay, but it doesn't. It creates conservative gameplay.
Yeah.
Like, this is why adding twists and adding different advantages and adding different things doesn't work well.
Hmm.
And I don't know what it will take to get producers to, like, understand and internalize this message. But yeah, like, either you have a good show that you created from a production standpoint where it's like, well, we know we're gonna do a journey in this episode, so we can edit around that and we can, like, do all these flashy things, or you trust your cast and you hope that they give you the show. And they are leaning towards the former.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting for sure. Let me just run through the list of names that have been voted out during Mergatory because I think this is really interesting. So
Mhm,
in Survivor 41, you have Sydney, who goes home during Mergatory, and she is from the largest tribe.
mhm,
She is trusted by some people. Like she's the number one of Danny during
mhm.
that season, but everybody else is like, well, Sydney is a bit of a challenge threat, and she's on the biggest tribe that never went to tribal council. She ends up being a consensus.
Mhm,
Survivor 42, Lydia goes home.
mhm.
I honestly don't really remember the circumstances around that one.
I
But
barely do, but yes, I remember that. I think it was I think they were, like, trying to weaken who was Lydia's main was it Omer? No, it wasn't Omer. Someone. They were trying to weaken someone else, if I remember correctly.
yeah,
Or
I believe she was on the same tribe as like Hi and Chanel.
maybe it was High. that they were like trying to get at. I remember there was some shenanigans around it, and I think that was it. But I could be totally wrong. I'm not a good historian of Survivor.
Yeah. Survivor 43, that's when Ellie went home. Gabler threw her name out despite being on the same tribe as her. I believe the tribe went to tribal council once in episode 1, but then won throughout there. So I think they were the majority tribe, or at least, up there.
Yeah.
Survivor 44, that's when Josh Wilder went home, and he was on one of the original tribes, but got swapped over to the Tika tribe at the very end, and sort of became on the outs with everybody, and sort of became an easy consensus vote. Survivor 45, that's when Caleb was supposed to go home, but successfully played a shot in the dark, and Jay Maya went home instead. However, both are sort of consensus boots anyway, because Caleb was seen as a consensus boot because of how socially savvy he was and, likable he was. Jay Maya was seen as a consensus boot because the Reba tribe wanted to sort of disguise their numbers a little bit, disguise the Reba 4 more. Wanted to get rid of Sifu first, but I mean, Jay Maya was on the outs anyway. Survivor 46, very consensus boot itself, is when Mariah went home from whatever the Green tribe was that season. Once again, tribe that had the most people. And Mariah was literally said, like, in the episode, was like, well, Mariah is of someone that nobody's really that close with, so she's an easy vote for all sides. Like, they said that in the episode. Survivor 47, one of the most obvious consensus boots was the boot of Rome, everyone's favorite contestant. And I think that one kind of goes without saying. I mean, that's as consensus as it gets. And then in this episode, you have Charity. So it's all consent. There really is not an exception here. Like,
no, there isn't. And it's not, and even when it is like strategy, it's like the loosest of strategy. It is mostly just like, if you are in the major, like, biggest numbers tribe, you offer someone on silver platter, or you hope that there is someone who is just annoying to live with.
Yeah.
That's kind of it.
Yeah. I mean, I really like what you said about the idea that this is the most big brother that the show gets, because I think it's true. I think, honestly, like, it feels like a different show. This episode feels like it really is like, who is the least well integrated?
Yeah. They don't even try and confuse us. Like, the edit barely in any of the boot episodes for Mergeatory tries to make it seem like it'll be someone else.
Yeah. I mean, even in this episode, like, I mean, we'll get into it later, but they kind of like hint at, oh, well, maybe Say has a chance of going home, but like it's never real.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as smoky and mirrorsy as it gets, but
Yeah, and they're gonna do that whenever they can, because then they can show more of Say doing nonsense. Like,
yeah.
Maybe that when they were trying to allude to that was when she was lifting, one person to one person to one person, like everything that she ate at the merge feast, which they just wanted to show.
Yeah. So why not? Why not?
Yeah, telling hungry people you eat nachos, great content. I support it.
Yeah. Let's talk about this mergeatory in general, because we get, after the tribal council, we get a little bit of fallout where Cedric's like, I don't know why Say's mad at me. I saved her again, which is something in and of itself, but we already talked a lot about him. But anyways, they all get together. They all say, grab your stuff. You're going to this camp. Get your stuff. And it's sort of an interesting situation, because we get there and it is 3 from the original Vula tribe, I think. No. Yeah. You get 5 people from Siva. No, 6 people from Siva.
Yeah, Siva is 6. I think
Siva
the other
6. And then 4 from
4 and 3.
Yeah. So it's an interesting situation
Loggy?
because
Loggy is this other one?
Yes, Loggy. So they're all 4-letter, 2-syllable names.
I don't even try to know Survivor tribe names anymore.
Yeah, it's difficult. But anyways, so Siva does have the most theoretically, but there also was a swap. So, there's something to be said. This is only the second mergeatory that has had a swap. or
Yeah.
like a real swap, I should say. The only other time with Survivor 45, technically the aforementioned Josh Wilder and Carson swapped in 44, but
Yeah.
that's so nothing that I
Yeah.
really don't count it. Um, but yeah, so it's interesting. New dynamics.
Mhm.
I am of the opinion that like twists are good for the new era, like or like swaps are good for the new era. Like
Yeah.
it's so much better. But
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. Your thoughts?
I think swaps are good too. Yeah. Swaps are interesting. Swaps give players opportunities. And sometimes, this is the Mario Party that I think is like fair. Like sometimes you are just swap screwed.
Hmm.
And you can't really do anything about it. And like that sucks. Like if you were playing and similar to the one tribal that like Rachel was the only person on except for the rest of whatever the other tribe was, like that sucks if that happens to you. But for people that know how to use their resources and have the ability with basically anything that is not just a clear you're screwed over, you get to shine. And that's what Camilla and Kyle did. Like they were on the bottom half of the numbers, but they were like, we can use this to our advantage. Like we can do
Yeah.
something interesting with this. And I think it shows you who the savvy players are, like who the players that kind of have something else up their sleeve besides just luck.
Yeah. So, I mean, at this point, another interesting thing about the merge at this point are the advantages that are out there. And there was a really interesting move in the last episode when Star was finally able to unlock her idol thanks to Eva and said to her, "You know what? You can have it."
Yeah.
Very interesting move.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was a great move for Star, but I don't know. What did you think?
I mean, I think it's a great move, but I don't think it was a move. Like I kind of genuinely believe that Star just thinks that it was fair and that's what you should do. But I think Star was the going to be a consensus, going to be offered up on a platter. Like Eva even tried to offer Star up on a platter if that tribe had gone to tribal council. And I think having a known idol is bad. Like I think
Yeah.
that Eva needs to have used it at mergeatory or use it next one. Like
Hmm.
I think this is similar to that pendant or whatever that the three people had, and then they were just like, we're gonna use it now because oh, we're just gonna burn it. Like I think that this you cannot think of as an idol, because then you will, treasure it and try and do something good with it. You just need the stink off of you. Like you just need to use it.
Yeah, I agree with you. For what it's worth, Star apparently even before the tribe swap was saying to Cheyenne and other people like, if you are able to unlock this for me, you can have the idol.
Yeah.
Which might be part of the reason why Cheyenne was like, well, I don't really want to help her that much.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think it's interesting. I agree with you for what it's worth. I am a very big proponent of like if you have an idol, if you have really an advantage that people can track, that's like public and people know about, and you hit the merge, you hit the mergeatory, like you want to burn that because
Mhm.
that can only be an additional target on your back. Um, the only reason why someone like Rachel was able to use her idol so well is because nobody knew about it, and
Yeah.
it was completely hidden. Uh, but yeah, I mean, like I think about it like this: like you look at Kyle right now. Kyle just successfully played an idol, but the target isn't very big on his back right now. It's
Yeah.
certainly not nothing, but it's not bigger or smaller than Cheyenne or Camilla or any of these other sort of power players we have in the game because not everybody was there for it. And I think, that's the power of playing an advantage early.
Yeah. And this is also why I don't like the beware advantages. Like I feel like I'm fine with idols, I'm fine with advantages, but if you do so much to have to get it, or there are so many clear traces that this happened, because not having a vote for any number of tribals, people know. I think
Yeah.
that let your cast do what they want to do because you have enough people that will just share it readily. That will just be like, hey, I have an idol. And then we can say that whether it was good strategy or not strategy for them to do it. But if you leave people with no options, you just make it so obvious that there's like, a sign above them that points saying that they have an advantage, it limits the number of plays they can do.
Yeah.
And that is less fun to me.
I mean, that's what killed Thomas, right? Was the big sign above his head that, hey,
Mhm.
I'm lying about, what I said on this journey, which
Yeah.
means I could have an advantage, which is the incentive to idle me out
Yeah.
because, I'm not being honest about that
Mhm.
because frankly I shouldn't. But like, since
Yeah.
everybody else hits this happening space too,
Mhm.
they know what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I really have mixed feelings about it because on one hand, I do think it does make the game more exciting, and I don't want to pretend that I'm like the biggest hater of journeys and the beware advantages ever because I'm really truly not.
Mhm.
But this season specifically, just that one journey, that one dice rolling journey has just it's in the back of my head all the time. Like
Yeah.
three people have gone home because of that journey. It
Mhm.
is Thomas, Bianca, and now and Justin. Thomas didn't go home directly from it, but he
Mhm.
kind of went home because of all the fallout from it, and just the idea of people have to play on journeys in general. So
Yeah.
yeah,
When did it start? Because they first had like an opt out when it was Shipwheel Island or whatever, right? Like there
yeah.
was. I'm not like making this up. There
No, you're
was a
not.
time where you could opt out.
No, absolutely. I mean, when they first introduced the journeys and like Survivor Ghost Island and stuff like that, it
Mhm.
was definitely opt out because there's one scene that I remember very well where Kellen Bechtold went to the island, and this is at like final, I don't know, maybe final 8 or final 7 or
Mhm.
something, and she could have risked her vote to get an extra vote, but was like, you know what? I need to keep my vote. I'm not doing it, and it was kind of like a whoa, why wouldn't you want to do that sort of thing? But
Mhm.
with time, the option to like I want to keep my vote has become more and more obvious. But I think it's really just sometimes you get the option and sometimes you don't. Because even as recent as the aforementioned Banu, like
Mhm.
he risked his vote, but he didn't have to. There's an option. Like yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Mhm.
But I don't have a great answer because I don't know if there is a great answer. I think it kind of fluctuates. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's just it's so frustrating, because, like, this is the mark of, like, good games in general, I think. Like, I think if you are good at constructing a game, you are good at thinking of, "Okay, how can someone use production to their advantage, essentially? Like, use this mechanic to get them farther."
Mhm.
And it's just I I'm inclined because I feel like it's just so different enough recently that like Jeff just digs his heels in recently. Like he wants to believe something is like the best idea, and then he's just like, well, this is the best idea. And like that type of philosophy doesn't allow you to be like flexible to recognizing, okay, so like here's the unintended uses of this, type of mechanic.
Mhm.
How do we make something that counters that mechanic? How do we do something that, isn't like completely removing it necessarily, but is recognizing like there are other ways to play this, like the emergent gameplay of like using a shot in the dark or using like a I don't have a vote in order to hide where you would have voted.
Yeah.
That should be something that Survivor is accounting for and adjusting to, but because at the very least Jeff is just like sticking his heels in, like they don't really have much room to do that.
Well, that makes the whole concept of like Jeff being like for season 50 being like, you do it so
Mhm.
interesting to me because like if it is truly in the hands of the fans, and the season ends up being way more dynamic and interesting than
Mhm.
any new era season, which I imagine by the very nature of not being the same thing for or for 9 seasons in a row, that it will be more interesting. Like, does Jeff continue to deal his dig his heels in,
Yeah.
or is he going to be like, yeah, you're right. I hope it's the latter. I hope it's a great season, and I hope it's everybody's dreams and fantasies are fulfilled and whatever else. But
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah.
So speaking of advantages, we do get one big scene that happens before we really get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, which is there is an advantage that is hidden somewhere on the beach,
Mhm.
and they all read this message, and it's all a mad dash to find this advantage that will be very helpful in the game indeed. And it comes down to Charity and Say, and Charity spots this just you know Easter egg essentially that's just sitting in the middle of the jungle. And she sees it and she says, "I'm gonna go grab it." But then Say comes out of nowhere and rushes and grabs it.
Mhm.
Um, and you know what? It's such a cool moment. It's like it's very fun. It's very dynamic. And it's all for an advantage in the challenge, which honestly to me is like a bit of a letdown, but like
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah, I feel like if it wasn't against Charity, this would have been, like, yet another death sentence for Say. Like, you know, going back to, like, kind of the star justice model of this, I think if you very much recognize someone saw it, like, it's theirs. And I think that being, like, kind of the Carolyn of this or the Caroline of this of, like, good for you, like, you found the advantage is way better than taking that advantage. Like, I
Yeah,
think that advantage puts a mark on you. Like, again, it's what Rob said last season, like, it makes you so stick out that you are clean and the rest of the people have been birthed through the mud. Like, it is not good to actually take, and then you just made it very, very clear to at least, like, this one person that, like, you are going to be cutthroat regardless if it's helpful for your game or not. And so I think that Say was lucky that it was against Charity, because I don't think many people would have cared very much, or they would have been like, well, at
yeah.
least Charity didn't get it. But I think if it was against anyone else, it would have been yet another, nail in our coffin.
Yeah, I imagine that it's the show. The show loves to say like, well, if this thing had changed, then there could have been a different outcome in the
Mhm.
episode. I imagine this is the closest thing that they really had to being like, well, Charity had a chance,
Yeah.
because she seems like an athletic person.
Mhm.
If she got it, then maybe she would have a chance. But I don't know.
I think that the main perk of this advantage is you for sure get food. Like,
Yeah,
I don't think that this advantage helps at all with, like, getting immunity, which is part of why I'm like, this is kind of
yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, frankly, if they had like described it that way, like you will get a free ticket to the reward or
For
the
the
mergatory
nachos.
meal. Yeah, to the nachos. Like I think that would have felt more impactful to the audience,
Yeah.
maybe. Instead of being like, well, you get to have the chance to win immunity. You don't have to go through this mud crawl, which
Yeah,
is like, okay.
yeah, that's so weird. Why nachos with the merch? This is a little bit tangential, but, like, that feels like such a weird choice to have nachos be the one of the options.
Why nachos specifically? Speak on that.
Like, I think that it feels like nachos is something that doesn't keep very well, and, like, it gets soggy and weird fast, and, like, is really messy, like, I don't know, it just seems like a very weird choice of food to
Yeah.
have as, like, maybe it's just my opinion about nachos, but, like, I like nachos. I just, like, if I'm thinking about, like, food for a party or something, I would never think nachos that readily, and especially if I was gonna be like, "Well, what's gonna be sitting out for probably a while before someone eats it?" I would definitely not think nachos.
Yeah, I think you're speaking to something that I think yeah, it is interesting because I am of the opinion that nachos are like a pretty standard party food. I think like if you're going to watch, I don't know, like a football game or something, like
Mm.
some of the stuff that's there is like pretty normal. Like they have nachos, they have like pizza, but the problem is the fact that it's been sitting out for who
Yes.
knows how long. And it's like I don't want to eat that pizza. I don't want to eat those nachos. Like that is
Yeah,
gross. No, thank you.
yeah.
Um,
And they've been doing I feel like maybe I'm crazy and just, like, recreating history, but I feel like a lot of times it's been, like finger like sandwiches, like, fruit, like things that
mhm.
are good for a party setting, but, like, don't age poorly. Like, they're things that, like, are kind of either meant to be eaten cold to begin with, or there are things that don't get like worse quality when they are. Even like
Yeah.
spaghetti, honestly, like kind of cold spaghetti is like fine mostly.
Oh, I don't know about
I mean,
that.
I guess at least noodles, kind of cold noodles, I feel like is, I would much rather have kind of cold noodles than like gross soggy nachos.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess that's just personal preference. I will say this, if that pizza or something like that was put in front of me, I would say no, thank you. No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Some of the most disgusting food I've ever seen on television is the pizza that's been on Survivor. Like, honestly.
Yeah, I know. I am not a pizza eater in general. Like I don't love pizza, but it looks like every time it looks so disgusting. It looks worse than like school lunch pizza.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I was talking with Nick on the last episode, and we were talking about you know, food to refuel you. Like, what food would you really want to see? What food would you be craving, maybe after Survivor or when you get to a meal like this? I
Mhm.
said just a sandwich. I would
Yeah,
like a sandwich because
yeah.
it's a bunch of ingredients all together. It's got
Mhm,
your meat, got your cheese, got your lettuce, got your
mhm.
whatever else, got your bread, and I can eat it, and I'll feel good about myself
Yeah,
in the morning.
I
But yeah,
agree. Yeah, I think that if I was, I've never wanted to play Survivor. I'm not meant to play Survivor. So like, but if I was thinking like, what kind of food would I want optimally on Survivor? It would yes be either a sandwich, or it would literally just be like chicken and rice. Like any of the rich stuff, any of the sugary stuff, any of the caffeine, the alcohol, like that's so bad for, and we see it so often be bad for your system. Like we see people like have so many
yeah,
issues afterwards. And so it makes good television. We all love the auction. We all love people eating the food on Survivor. But like if I was trying to like, fuel myself with calories, but like not have an issue after, I would only be looking for like certain foods to do that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I will be honest, with the exception of the aforementioned pizza, I'll probably eat basically anything. I'm
Yeah.
sure I would be very hungry indeed. But yeah, I
I think
mean,
I think the only thing I wouldn't have is alcohol or coffee.
yeah, same here. I think coffee would be insane to
Yeah,
have.
coffee, I feel like I'm not a nutritionist, like, I don't fucking know what things are doing to my system all the time, but,
Yeah,
like, coffee, like, every piece of coffee except for, like, the initial, like, kind of taste of normalcy is bad for you. Like, you don't want that much caffeine, you don't want that much it's just bad. It's just bad.
I have to imagine too, drinking coffee when you're like supposed to be kind of strategizing in that
Yeah.
moment when you're like haven't had anything except for
Mhm.
water to drink for the past who knows how long.
Yeah.
Um I gotta imagine that's like an insane feeling. Like
Yeah.
actually this is your brain on drugs. You know what I
Who
mean?
someone said that on like an RHAP episode at some point. It was someone who like had a lot of coffee as a reward. And they were talking about like, yeah, it was like really bad at like, I wasn't thinking very clearly, or like I stayed up way too late, or I like kind of played myself into a corner. Like I'm gonna remember at like 3 a.m. But like there was someone who like said that exactly of like recognizing in their own game how like the reward of coffee was like so detrimental. I can't remember who it is, but
Yeah, I can't speak to that, but I can speak to in Survivor the Amazon when Alex Bell went on this reward that was a coffee house, a little coffee house in the Amazon, and
mhm,
he drank a lot of cups of coffee, and they gave like a whole like 4 or 5 minute segment on
mhm.
how insane he was
Yeah.
back at camp because he just kept drinking coffee and
Mhm.
all of a sudden was like the most energetic person ever to live ever.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I can't imagine it's good, especially since Survivor has only gotten more strategic since then.
Mhm.
Like, does the advent of coffee make you more likely to spill information? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. It's
Or especially during a mergatory episode, does it change enough of your behavior to make you seem like you'll not be fun to live with?
yeah, that's
Which
that's
apparently
a
is the
good point
riskiest thing
too.
you can do in a mergatory episode.
Yeah. So moral of the story: don't drink coffee on Survivor.
Yes.
Um, Yeah. It is interesting to see who connects before we get into this early merge episode. Speaking of drinks, milk is something that seems very important on this season.
Uh-huh.
as important as someone's vote itself. Because how about David and Joe bonding over both drinking? Two people in the season, both drinking a gallon of milk a day. Insanity. I
Yeah.
don't want to judge people based on the way they live their lives, but
Yeah.
that
But it's
is
crazy.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I have never thought about milk as much as I have this season of Survivor. Like, drinking a gallon of milk also, like, how do you afford that? Do you have to, like, go to the grocery store every day to just get a gallon of milk? A gallon is a lot. Like, do they
Yeah.
know what a gallon is?
Yeah, I like I just imagine the fridge. Like, do you
Yeah.
go to the grocery store once, you buy 7 gallons of milk, and then you somehow like put it all in your fridge? Like, you have to have a big fridge for that.
Yeah, you also have to know that, like, you're committed to that because, like, I mean, milk is one of those things that, like, I rarely use milk, like, I have it in my fridge normally for, like, if I'm making something that needs milk in it or, like, if I have cereal, but, like, if I'm getting milk, it's dicey of whether or not the milk is gonna get finished before it goes sour, and so if
Mhm.
you're, like, committing to drinking a gallon of milk a day, what if you end up, like, leaving town for the weekend and then you have, like, 3 gallons of milk that are, like, extra, and you're like,
Oh,
"Oh, how am I gonna drink all this before it spoils?"
that yeah, that's why. Like, I'm not like against milk as a concept,
Yeah,
but I'm never actively seeking out, I want to drink milk at this present moment in time. Or if I am, it's a rare chance in life, I
yeah.
don't really do it
It's
that much.
very rare that I'm like, I actively want to drink milk,
Yeah.
but good for them for loving something in this world, I guess.
That's kind of beautiful the way that you put that. But yeah, so they bond over that. Probably not a real bond, but I mean,
If it is,
it's
it's
interesting.
hilarious. Like, if we get to the end game and they're still in an alliance because of milk, that's so funny.
Yeah. Let's get to this reward challenge because this is sort of the first I mean it's the first happening, but it's interesting because we get to this reward challenge and there are two parts to it. And Say gets to sit out the first part, which is you are divided into two teams and you're gonna do this muddy thing where you get tar and feathered essentially.
Yeah.
And you got to go through this whole rigmarole and solve a puzzle at the end,
Mhm.
which is pretty standard Survivor affair.
Yeah.
Um, my one thing about it is something that has sort of bothered me a little bit, and the more it happens, the more I get slightly more bothered by it. And now I have to say it. I can't tell who's on what
Oh, yeah,
team.
I have no idea who anyone is.
I just don't. I literally like when the challenge was over, I could not tell who won. I
Yeah.
had no idea. Um, I still don't really know who won, honestly. Like I couldn't tell you what the split
Yeah.
was
I
or
feel like I
anything.
only for sure knew that, like, Mary and Eva were on the winning team. That's because, like, they look unique enough and, like, kind of body structure
Yes.
that I could tell who they were.
Yeah. Um, it was it's just I don't get it. Like if you're gonna come up with a game and you're gonna be like, hey, we're gonna split this tribe into two,
Mhm.
and we're gonna see half of them are gonna be safe. I would really like to be sure of who's safe going into the next vote so I can know that maybe like if I'm a big Mary fan, like I'm like, I want to know that Mary's safe. Or, since Eva has an idol, I want to be like, I want to make sure that Eva doesn't have to play her idol,
Mhm.
that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Um, but instead, we get this big challenge, and eventually, one group of people loses.
Yeah.
And instead of sort of dwelling on who loses, we go immediately to the people who won that challenge, who now, instead of the sort of traditional mergatory affair, they have the chance to have only one person win immunity,
Mhm.
which is kind of interesting to me because one part of me feels like it defeats sort of the whole point of this splitting thing. Since only one person is going to win immunity anyway. Um, I'm gonna hit you with a hot take.
Ooh.
Probably a take that's a little hot. Coming off the presses. I
Mhm.
am of the opinion that mergatory is better than the alternative. Um, I like mergatory. We're at a merge of 13 people.
Mhm.
I think I don't love mergeatory, but I think the idea of splitting the amount of people who are immune and not immune in half is better than just having it be everybody's up for grabs except for one person. Because
Mhm.
I think for the most part, especially in seasons with swaps, if you're gonna do that and you're gonna have all these people not immune, you're gonna get even more consensus than you get during mergatory. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I also think it's pretty funny because I think that, like, these are the consequences of your actions. And, like, I feel like they forget that. Like, if you don't want to do that, have them merge a bit later and have them start with like two tribes or merge into two tribes before you merge them into one tribe.
Yeah.
Like, they don't need to do a bunch of decisions that they made before this, but then they got to a point where, like, yeah, it might be the actual best case scenario after making these other 5 decisions, but, like, it's not that good, and, like, it
No.
didn't work very well, and do something else, but, like, do something else at a different stage than the mergatory stage. Like, they started writing their paper, and they are, like, recognizing there's an issue with it, but they don't wanna just, like, throw out the draft and, like, start anew. They wanna figure out, like, "Well, how can we change, like, these sentences? Because like, then it will be
Yeah.
fine." And it's leading to a bunch of weirdness.
Yeah. I did some research into this maybe like a year ago or something like that because I was curious about it. And the only episodes of like the merge with these big, 12 or 13 people that are merged that are actively interesting are the ones where it is two tribes who have not swapped whatsoever, who are going up against each other. And they're sort of even numbers, so they have to go against each other.
Yeah.
Like, those are the ones, say, like South Pacific, where John Cochran flips and Keith goes home,
Mhm.
or maybe Ozzy goes home. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Like that is your interesting big merge episode.
Mhm.
Everything else, since most of those seasons have a swap or three tribes, there is some amount of we can work together and we can choose somebody who nobody really wants to work with to it because maybe there's more autonomy in the gameplay, but there's also more reason to just do the easy thing, you know?
Yeah, exactly. You're incentivized to do like less like less fun, interesting gameplay when there are more twists. I also think that the structure of most reality shows being surrounding the evictions makes sense because where else are you gonna structure it? But
Yeah.
like it's not interesting. Like evictions are only kind of fun sometimes. But like having shows that are like every episode is so formulaic and it always ends with that makes you feel like you need to end well. This is one of the ways that maybe like another hot take. Netflix is kind of doing a good job with this when they drop like a bunch of episodes at a time, kind of like The Mole, but they don't always end every episode on who goes home because sometimes it is more interesting to end it like the round before essentially of like, well, who's gonna get this thing, who's going to win this challenge. And then you watch the next episode and it's like in the middle is when the eviction happens because it wasn't as interesting as like this other pivotal moment. Like if they allowed themselves to play with their format and not have every episode be like that, but I don't know how they can do that very easily because it changes so much. It doesn't just change the structure of the show, but it changes like how they do like press afterwards, which is a huge part of how they continue to do these shows. And
Mhm.
so like, this is how capitalism and the world ruins our good times. Is there's not really another option for them to do.
Yeah, I will be completely honest with you. I disagree with you. I think that there is something. I think being formulaic is honestly a good thing in reality TV. I think having some degree of structure to your show and
Mhm.
knowledge of like the episode ends when someone goes home, and then we get a little bit of time to like reset and the question of like what's going to happen next is a good thing because it always gives an audience the same expectations, and those expectations are never flipped on their head negatively.
Yeah.
What is the one episode in Survivor history where nobody went home during the episode? It happened twice. The answer is the hourglass twist in Survivor 41 and 42.
Yeah.
That is the one time where Survivor really played with the format and said, what if we don't send someone home this episode?
Mhm.
And I think most people would agree that that was imperfect at best.
Yes.
Um, I think that's true of a lot of reality shows. Like I definitely don't just watch Survivor. Some shows that have played with that format, as you mentioned, are The Traders,
Mhm.
Deal or No Deal Island, shows that I enjoy and shows that I think are really fun.
Mhm.
But to me, as an audience member, when they leave me with a cliffhanger of, like who's Brittany going to vote for at this round table,
Mhm.
or who is David going to choose to play the banker in this episode, and they leave the episode on that, like sure, maybe that's a more intriguing thing for the next episode, but as a member of the audience and a person watching who has been given a format and structure to the show that's just had it flipped on its head for seemingly no discernible reason
Mhm.
other than to create more, like uh intrigue for the next episode,
Mhm.
like I personally, I'll probably tune in no matter what, but it
Mhm.
frustrates me as an audience member
Yeah.
when it goes
That's
against the format of these reality shows without saying explicitly
true. Mhm.
beforehand, like, it's not about who goes home each episode. It's about the narrative of the season
Yeah.
interworking.
Maybe it's just one of those, like, there's no correct way about it because it just is going, regardless of how you do it, kind of go poorly. Maybe the better way to kind of phrase this rather than like changing the format is like the shows themselves shouldn't expect the excitement to come from an eviction because
Yeah.
that is something they do that I'm like as soon as tribal council starts almost, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of done. Like I'm kind of done watching this episode. And it's so long. It's like forever. And why? Like, why are we doing this? I don't want to hear just a bunch of metaphors endlessly for like the next 20 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree with you in the idea that the eviction should not be, and really never is, the most interesting part of the episode. I think about Big Brother. I am not a huge Big Brother fan, but I've seen, two, three-ish seasons at this point.
Mm.
And one thing is that Big Brother, the eviction itself is not why people tune in,
Yeah.
like because the evictions are decided, so it's all about the interwoven nature of seeing people live making these decisions over a week and how it grows and evolves. The eviction itself is almost always sort of the same.
It's decided on, like, Tuesday,
Yeah.
essentially, which is also why people that, like, are Big Brother fans are, like, mostly annoyed with episodes because the players are already past what's happening on Thursday's eviction, but they won't show any of that in the episode because they have to pretend like this is important, and they can't just be like, "Okay, well, this is a nothing burger, like, we already know that, so and so is going home," so, like, the players are talking about next week, and if I mean, Big Brother, I think in that way is the perfect example of this message, which is if
Yeah.
they allowed us to know the truth, which is this doesn't matter, like this is just what we're doing here, then they would be able to show us the interesting things. They would show us, during this current week, like what they're already planning for next week, rather than hiding that. And then you get so like backlogged, you just like miss things because if you have every week most of your content be about the next week, what about like as you build weeks, you have like so much backed up content that you keep rolling over that there's not enough time to show like genuinely what's happening.
I think you've convinced me, to some extent. Like honestly, I think here's what I like about the traders,
Mhm.
and here's something I think could be used. What I like about the traders is typically the episode format isn't just we, banish someone and we learn their identity and now we're sad and the episode ends. They leave the intrigue most of the time, with some exceptions, on
Mhm.
who are the traders going to murder that night,
Yeah.
which I think gives a lot of, it's very good television because it gives the fallout. It gives the frustration of being like, oh, they were a faithful,
Yeah.
to the traders being in the turret, like, okay, how do we set up the next game move?
Yeah.
And to some extent, I think really most reality shows could benefit from something like
Mhm.
that. It's really hard for me to sit here and say like Survivor could benefit from doing that too, but I think Big Brother could,
Yeah.
because Big Brother, you have more content that has
Mhm.
happened that people could have already seen that you can put in the show to
Yeah.
be like, this is what I think about, Sarah going home or being
Mhm.
evicted. I'm unhappy because I was working with Sarah and she was the most amazing guest, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But that would be a little interesting. I even think Survivor, like they used to do this a little more, where when they would have people walk out of tribal council, they would have maybe one person be like, I can't believe Sarah went home. Now I have to restructure my whole game. But
Yeah.
believe me, I'm gonna come out swinging, or something
Mhm.
like that. I think stuff like that, just to set up a little more intrigue for the next episode, is
Mhm.
interesting. I mean, even when Jeff used to do his little words of wisdom thing, which he doesn't do anymore, um, that was good too at setting up the next episode. That doesn't really exist anymore, but I don't know. It's really tough for me to say Survivor as a show should change its format, but I don't disagree with you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's just hard, because I really like reality TV shows, but it's a little bit, like, damned if you do, damned if you don't try and think for, like, them to follow because it also is really bad. Like, I know you haven't watched much Big Brother, but, like, it whenever there is, like, something that becomes, like, a meme on Big Brother, if Julie starts to reference it, it's dead. Like, it died instantly. And I think that the shows are on such a tightrope of, like, they have to have interesting, like, formats and challenges and teams. Like there is so much they have to do to set up the pieces, but then they have to kind of let the pieces be. And I think they are currently moving the pieces too much. And like it is just it's noticeable and it's like a little frustrating and it makes it less fun because it feels more like what's the word for this? It feels less like dynamic as a show and as like characters on the show. And I don't really know how you get back to this except for you have to like really, be humble about what you're doing, I guess. Like I think a huge part of the issue is like Survivor got popular and then they know it got popular. And yeah, it partially got popular for you, but you can't think that way because then like you change how you act with it and then it leads to these weirdnesses where like you aren't allowing the work to speak for itself. Like you're showing us how interesting it is, and that makes it inherently less interesting.
Yeah, that's a very interesting one. I honestly don't know how to like dive into that any
That's
deeper because I think it's an impossible question to answer. It's like a chicken and an egg situation. Like what came first, the popularity or the popular format to the show?
Mhm,
Like can you have a good format to a show without having popularity,
mhm.
or is the oh my god, sorry. It's so much to think about. It's such an insane concept, but it's true. Like, is the popularity of the show, does it dictate the success of a format or vice versa? And
Mhm.
that's sort of the question we have to answer when it comes to, well, do you want to switch up the format of the
Yeah.
show? Something like Big Brother has been going on for 25 years now.
Mhm.
If it switched up the format, even if it theoretically sounds good, would it actually work?
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
And part of this is just like how TV works. Like, do you watch Jet Lag the game?
I love Jet Lag the game.
Yeah, I think that Jet Lag the game and like other shows that are not like funded on like, big CBS or like big like cable companies have freedom to like make weirder decisions or make like more dynamic decisions. And that's like something you can't recreate. Like Survivor is never going to be an indie project.
Yeah.
And because of that, it is always going to have to operate within the structure that it is. And similar to, every other show that we watch. Like if we had a way of kind of escaping the clutches of like all of the like other rigmarole parts of being a part of like TV, then like maybe everything could like has the potential at least to be like a jet lag, but
Yeah.
like isn't.
Yeah, I gotta say, you've completely sold me on this. Because Jet Lag the game to me has always felt I adore it. If you're not familiar with it, Jet Lag the game is a great little show that you can find on YouTube. That's essentially three, sometimes four people playing a board game across the world.
Mhm,
So that could be something as simple as playing tag across Europe, playing hide and seek throughout the entirety of Switzerland, to something more complicated, like trying to go across Europe and claim the most countries in a period of a few days or something like that. And it's interesting and it's dynamic and it's fun and it's 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 sort of like, to me, in terms of a game played across the world, it's pretty similar to The Amazing Race in some aspects. But to
Mhm.
me, I'm gonna sound mean when I say this, but I have never really cared about The Amazing Race.
Neither do
I
I.
get why people like it. It seems like it should be interesting and it should be fun. I have recently been of the opinion that The Amazing Race is a show that should be like all celebrities or something like that, but they
Yeah.
never figured it out. Um,
Yeah, it's similar to my issue with the Traders actually. Like the Traders is not a good format of a show, but when the Traders leans into being camp and like being just like ridiculous or like an all-star cast of all of these it's like those old school like Disney Channel collab episodes with like
yeah,
all
yeah,
of
yeah.
Hannah Montana on Sweet Like Zack and
Mhm.
Cody. Like if you lean into that, then the Traders is great. Like that's what the Traders should be. And the Amazing Race is similar where like it shouldn't be the show that it is, but like I don't know what they should do or how to do it.
Yeah.
And it is more interesting though when they put like when they have it be like the all reality show people or I don't know what they called it that time. They had like a bunch of old Amazing Race people, Big Brother, Survivor, they called it
Mhm.
something. Or like the all YouTubers, like I don't care about YouTubers very much, but like they get close sometimes to getting to like what it should be, which is like people that we already know going around the world, but they won't stay there.
Yeah. This is all to say that to me, Jet Lag the Game is a more dynamic and more interesting and more fun version of The Amazing Race. A large part being because of what we're talking about, what you're talking about, is the idea of not being tied to a specific format, a specific set of rules. Because The Amazing Race, every episode is the same. Every episode is you go to this place, you do a challenge or two, and then you get to the end. Last person's eliminated. That's the end of the episode. You're done. Like,
Mhm,
The Amazing Race to me, like, I enjoy a lot of reality television.
mhm,
Sometimes I'll put on a show in the background just to, know it's there while I'm, doing work or something like that.
mhm.
The Amazing Race is one of my go-tos because I don't have to pay attention to know
Yeah,
what's going on.
mhm,
Which there is definitely a lot of there's a world that, like, that's important. Like that, there's nothing wrong with that.
yeah.
But if I'm actively watching The Amazing Race, I'm bored.
Well, yeah, and the amazing I feel like whenever I put it on in the background, it is usually for very different reasons than I watch reality TV shows in general. Like if I'm watching shows, I want to see like good gameplay. I want to see good strategy. I
Yeah.
want to see people like figuring out like really intense puzzles, not like competition puzzles, but like how do I get, like kind of what Bianca tried to do. Like, how do I get through this, but also like not piss people off for afterwards? Like, how do I think in all those steps?
Mhm.
And when I'm watching Amazing Race, I am usually like I like a team who is just like chill. Like they're just kind, they're just fun. They're enjoying like the places they're going and they are enjoying each other and like laughing. And like that is what I look for. Whenever people treat Amazing Race like they would a survivor and just like play hard, I'm just like, I don't care to watch you do this. Like you're just yelling at, usually your wife. And I don't like this.
Yeah. I agree. Which, once again, I don't want to just hate on The Amazing Race. Like there's a reason it's been around so long. Dot dot dot. But I will say, Jet Lag the Game is way more fun. It leans in. It's both somehow more fun because it's not tied to that specific format, but also 10 times more strategic.
Yeah.
Um. So
Yeah,
yeah.
Jet Lag the Game is, to me, similar to, like, the wizard in Clock Tower. Like, you can have the wizard be awful because you, like, did not think of all the different ways that the, kind of mechanics work themselves out, or it can be, like, really interesting and really thoughtful, and I think that the reason why Jet Lag the Game is, like, so good is they are such good game makers. Like, they are just good at thinking about all of the different dynamics people want. And so they make sure that they create rules that don't lean into something that becomes annoying to watch. And that is like a key piece to making a really good product.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of went through all my thoughts on the matter. I didn't have anything. Do you have anything else you want to say on that?
No, I think we're good. We lost track. We got to every other show except for Survivor.
Yeah, we really threw darts at the dartboard there and landed on every other show. But yeah. Anyways, that is all to say. We get to the second part of the reward challenge. And it is honestly, I thought this is a pretty fun second half of the
Mhm.
challenge. It's sort of a standard, survivor balance thing, but
Yeah.
you have a ball on a little disc, and you have to constantly add new sections of pole.
Mhm.
Till by the end of the challenge, it is way up there. It
Yeah,
is
I would suck at this.
yeah, not for me. Like this is something to once again go to the idea of like, well, Charity had a chance. This was her out. Like I have to imagine being a flight attendant. Like this is the type of thing that is made for you is balance and things like that.
Mhm.
I don't know that for sure. I would just imagine that being a flight attendant is a lot of intricate like little movements and stuff like that. I
Mhm.
don't know. I've only ever been on planes to fly places. I've never been a flight attendant personally.
Yeah,
So
same. I've also never been a flight attendant.
yeah. But anyways, so the winner of this challenge is of course Kyle. And Kyle gets the first buff. He wins and he's safe. And this is interesting to me for Kyle's perspective because Kyle is probably he's in the middle basically in terms of threats, I would say
Mhm.
at this point. But there is something if he starts to be looked at as a challenge threat, which I
Yeah,
think is possible. I
I would
think
have given it to Star if I was Kyle.
yeah, I think like David and Joe, like they are obviously more physical people. Like obviously, people like Eva are probably going to be better in challenges, and she's probably more physical than even
Mhm.
Kyle is. But Kyle's muscular. I mean, Kyle is fit,
Mhm.
obviously. So I wouldn't be surprised if like people target the form for so many different reasons.
Mhm.
I think if Kyle just even continues to do well in challenges, not even necessarily win, I
Yeah.
think people could view him as like, oh, well, that's our immunity threat
Yeah.
because there's always one in every season. So I
Yeah.
sort of worry for him from that perspective.
I do too, and I think that I don't think he needed it. I don't think it was useful for him to do. I
Yeah.
think that one of the things that like I I like how regardless of what kind of things you throw on these shows, it is always a microcosm of society. Like you can't escape that.
Yes. I love
And
that.
Kyle was already a muscular guy and he did not need anything else. And also like being the first person to win immunity, no one needs. Like it's just a kiss of death. Like has anyone that was the first to win an immunity ever been seen as anything besides like, well, they gotta go, basically. And
Yeah.
so I would almost, as a rule, if I was in Survivor, like this is kind of my version of the shot in the dark. Like I would never, even if I was even like considered, I thought my name was out there, I would always gamble and just like lose. Like I would have gone out like second or third in
Yeah.
individual immunity competition and tried my best to just like social game myself out of whatever I was in because I would be so worried about like the future rounds if I was known as the first person to have won individual immunity.
Yeah. It's interesting. I just did a little bit of looking up stuff as you were talking, and this is actually only the second time that there has been an individual immunity winner during the mergeatory.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Sounds
the the only other time was last season, and the last person to do it was a guy named Kyle. So go
well,
figure.
there you
Um, but I will say, Kyle, he did go on an immunity run, which is a little different. I mean, we've only had one episode of this, so who knows about for 48 Kyle too.
go. Yeah.
But Kyle one was
Yeah.
immediately seen as, a challenge threat and was good in
Yeah.
the challenges beforehand, and people were looking at him
Yeah.
straight away from then on to the point where when he finally lost an immunity challenge, it was like the most boring episode of the season because they were like, well, yeah, you gotta go.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that's going to happen to Kyle too. I don't think that'll happen to Kyle too, but
I
I
don't
do
either.
think winning immunity at this stage, regardless, doesn't help you
Mhm.
um, at all. So yeah. But moving on, I mean, we get after that the mergeatory meal, and we
Mhm.
sort of already talked about that.
Yeah.
But there are a few other sort of interesting things that happen here. Mainly, what gets brought up by the people who are sitting there in terms of like who should we target, who do we want out. The main targets is definitely Charity. She's the main target.
Mhm.
But they also bring up Eva as a potential target
Yeah.
because of her idol that is very public.
Yeah.
Speaking to what we were talking about earlier with you want to burn your advantages
Yeah.
early and fast. Um, I did find it a little interesting that they were so willing to bring up Eva's name this quickly.
Mhm.
To me, I feel like if I were on the show, and this is me armchair quarterbacking or whatever, but the way I feel is since Eva does have this very public idol, she would want to burn it. Like to me, there would be no reason why she wouldn't want to play it immediately, especially if I had just seen Survivor 46. So
Mhm.
why would I want to waste my vote on someone who's going to be immune anyway?
I kind of think that's exactly why they bring it up, though. Maybe I'm reading too much into kind of the social dynamics, but I think that the moment that Eva had with Joe is one that like you instantly know when you are in that episode, oh shit. Like this is making television. This is good. And so then it creates an a weird dynamic where you have some like social armor on you because everyone knows. They know that if they are the ones that are suggesting getting Eva out, that they're going to have to deal with Twitter. And it but also you have to get Eva out. And
Yeah,
so I think Eva getting the idol is an interesting enough camouflage for people to say we should get Eva out without actually saying that because she has an idol. She's obviously going
yeah,
to play it. We're not actually getting her out. We're just flushing the idol and like making her play it. And I think it it might be enough kind of like human like real world dynamics making it easier to say something that you know is a little bit like
yeah,
less good to say. Like trying to get Eva out says a lot more, both good and bad, than just like a player in a game.
yeah. No, I completely understand what you're saying. Here's something that's really interesting to me about Eva's position that I think is super unique for the new era. We've had people who have had their very inspirational stories that sort of seem like, oh well, this is the type of thing that could easily win you the game at the end.
Mhm,
Talk about Kyle one. That was something that was a reason why they voted him out was because
mhm,
of his story. Um, Eva's story was so public and
mhm.
such a big moment, but it wasn't just her. It was also Joe,
Yeah.
and Joe basically threw himself away from his tribe to be with Eva in that moment to comfort her, making the two of them an extremely obvious duo, but a
Mhm,
duo that everybody's aware of.
mhm,
Um, but it's not just them. Star had gave Eva her idol, and
mhm.
by all accounts seems to want to work with Eva going forward.
Yeah.
Shaheen is still there, and now Kyle and Camilla are working with Joe and Shaheen, which
Mhm.
means by extent, I would imagine that they're working with Eva to some extent.
Yeah.
So it's like Eva has this idol, but she also has very public allies, which I
Mhm.
think makes it especially hard to vote her out, despite her seeming theoretically like the biggest threat on the beach,
Yeah.
which I think is interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I think Eva's gonna be here for a bit unless there's like a stray bullet that kind of gets to Eva. Because I think she's high enough on the totem pole, similar to like in the J Maya in that way. But I don't think they are trying to directly hit Eva, or she is at much risk of leaving in a situation outside of unintended collateral damage.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because at some point in this episode, I believe it's Charity who goes to Star and is like, "Can you see if you can try to get the idol back from Eva?"
Mhm.
Um, and and I mean, Star kind of goes over and says, they want me to try to get the idol back. I don't know about that. And then Joe's
Yeah,
like, "Don't do that, Eva." And Eva's like, "Yeah, of course I'm not gonna do
yeah,
that. Yeah, no." Um, But that's interesting to me too, because they do want to weaken Eva, and I
Mhm.
guess they want to vote her out. But her allies, she has so many allies right now because she's such an honest person to everybody that it's like, to me, the way that I see Eva's game going is she gets pretty far in the game. I'm gonna say like final six, and then everybody sort of comes together and is like, we can't have Eva get to the end. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, we got to cut you. And then it'll be like an emotional moment and be like, we've
I
grown
agree.
and learned so much from this game and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah, I'm curious though, especially from Charity's like exit interviews. I wonder if Charity actually like wants Eva gone, or if she's just like so flabbergasted by what people are doing because she's like,
Yeah.
why would you give it, like, this is your idol, you should get it back. Like, I think that Charity seems like someone that I can definitely believe would fall victim to like I need to say what I am thinking here, and like it is seeming like gameplay or strategy, but mostly I'm just like confused, or I
Yeah.
think that like Star should get this back, and like she might not have even been thinking of anything further than that. I don't know, like I it's hard to like get into the minds of these people, but I can imagine if I was playing a game like that, I would just be like so confused that I might do something very similar to that and be like, well, now it sounds like I don't want Eva to have this idol and I want to get her out. But really, I'm just like, Star, why did you do that? Like, that was yours. You knew that was yours, right?
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I do think it was Charity genuinely being like, so are you going to ask for it back? Like, what is this? But I think anything, when you already have a magnifying glass on you, like anything amount
Mhm.
is just going to amplify things more.
Yeah.
And the fact that something like that could be interpreted as her trying to be strategic, especially when Eva's name was later thrown out as a name to be voted, like
Mm.
all those things combined, I
Yeah.
don't think
There was
helps.
nothing Charity could have done because they
Yeah.
had decided Charity was the boot,
Mhm.
basically.
I mean, here's the thing. From an audience perspective, like maybe it's just reading into the edit, blah blah blah. I'm not like an edgic person or anything like that, but like I know what I see on television.
Mhm.
I knew Charity was gonna be the mergeatory boot episodes ago. Like it felt so obvious because she just wasn't getting much screen time. The only relationship we saw develop was her and Mitch. And
Mhm.
people on her own tribe, like David, just kept saying, well, I don't trust Charity. And
Yeah.
Eva said, I don't trust Charity. And like, this, it just kind of
Yeah.
snowballed on itself.
I think
So,
the mergatory boot is like the most humane way that Charity leaves.
yeah.
Like, because I think the other thing, they could have just totally given her like the dodo edit. And so I think that like it was the best case scenario for everyone involved. It's unfortunate for Charity. I'm sorry that like this is, what happened to you on your one chance to play this game. But
Mhm.
like it was the most humane thing that could have happened to Charity's story was that she just
Yeah.
leaves now.
Yeah, I agree. And there were a few confessionals in this episode from Charity that like also made it super obvious she's gonna go home. I'm trying to remember one specifically, but she at some point is sitting down and is giving her confessional and gives something along the lines of, "In this game, you need to be trusted. You need people. You need to be able to look people in the eye and have people trust you. You need to be honest in this game." Which, as soon as she said that, I knew that she was cooked
Yeah.
because what is the one thing people have been saying about Charity in this game? That she seems shady, she seems fake, she doesn't seem real, blah blah blah. Whether or not those are all valid criticisms, who
Yeah,
knows?
it's just what happened, and yeah, I agree. There was no point in any of the content they gave us from Charity where I thought, "Oh, she's gonna turn this around." Like,
Yeah,
the best case scenario for her was that Say decided to collide her ship into Charity's to knock her off course and then hit herself. Like, there was nothing Charity could have done besides just, like, that kind of thing happening to her.
yeah. And Say tried her best to make it interesting. All credit to her, I guess.
Mm,
But she goes to this reward and she's loving this food and she's so glad that she didn't have to crawl in the mud. And then
yeah,
she gets back, she gets in the hammock and says to everybody, "You won't believe all the great food we ate." And it
mhm.
goes list by list, every food item.
Nachos.
Yeah, the nachos.
Was it
Um,
Mitch who was like, "Well, I'm glad that you're, like, happy or that, like, you were able to do this." Like, that was the most diplomatic, like, so funny. It was so funny.
not everything on Survivor has to be strategic, and I recognize this. But even beyond the strategy of it, the idea of going to a group of people and just like spilling all the details
Yeah.
about all the great food you ate and everything just seems, I don't know if rude's the right word, but it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
read the room, girl. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I relate to say because I also, if I have something that I'm thinking, I want to say it.
Yeah.
But that's part of why I'm not going on Survivor.
Yeah. Survivor has a very rich history of people going on food rewards and then saying too much about the food afterwards and sort of making everybody upset. My favorite example, one of my favorite moments in Survivor history, is in Survivor Marquesas when Nalia, or as I like to call her, Nelly, because it's spelled like that,
Mhm,
goes on this reward with Pascal and they eat like a 3-course meal, steaks and everything. It's like final six or something, and then she gets back and is talking about all the food that they brought out and is like, this is so amazing and this is amazing. You know, she's this like, cute 21-year-old like Mormon girl. She's like the innocent one. Like no one's really like mad at her, but
mhm.
they're like, Nalia, please,
Yeah.
please stop talking. And she's like, oh, I realize what I'm doing. I'm so sorry.
Mm.
Luckily, I still have this mint in my mouth. Does everybody want to take a piece and eat it?
Yeah,
And
that's so funny.
that is one of the most amazing moments of the show to me,
Mhm.
just pure insanity. But the
Yeah,
fact that it continues to this very day in this very season, and
yeah.
people still, 20 something years later, are not self-aware enough to recognize that
Mhm.
maybe a bunch of people starving on an island don't want to hear about all the amazing food you
Exactly.
ate
Yeah, yeah,
is something.
yeah.
Um, that's all to say that you're right. Charity never really has a chance. I
Mhm.
can't even remember the argument necessarily. I mean, Say's argument for her going home is Say is chaotic and unpredictable and is
Mhm.
that which I
Yep,
just said.
yep. Mhm.
And that's basically the only argument that gets laid out against her. Most everything else that we see is just people
Yeah.
saying,
They just decided they wanted charity. Like, I think people are great. Like, there's a lot of research about this too, actually, where like if people make a decision, they'll find evidence to support whatever decision they want to make already. They'll like
"Mm,
rationalize it. And I think Siva understood very early, probably, that like they needed to offer someone. They needed, I mean, A of all, you either need someone to vote out if you go to tribal, or if you don't go to tribal, you need someone to not be 6 people anymore. And I think that maybe Charity did something like day one on the beach because it doesn't take much. It just takes a small thing. Then after that, it just kind of snowballs. And
yeah,
it probably snowballed more and more and more as they kept not going to tribal because they didn't need to vote her out yet. But they were like, well, we're not working with her and like we need to not be 6. And so Charity.
yeah." I mean, here's the way that you can know that it was never anything else, like beyond everything that we've already talked about, right?
Mhm,
If you look back at the episode and you just talk about like, well, what is the alternative for Say? Like what are the people who are in power saying about, well, what if we don't do charity?
mhm.
All the conversations about Say being in the vote are the people being like, well, charity wants Say to go home.
Yeah.
Charity's voting Say, and then we'll get a confessional like, well, Charity's the vote right now, and she's the plan, dot dot dot, but blah blah
Mhm.
blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But they're never seriously considering it, which is something that, once again, I'm not an edgic person. I don't really like reading into the edit too
Yeah.
much, but I know what I see on television.
Mhm.
And what I see on television is when it's an obvious vote, the smoke and mirrors, one of the biggest ways that they'll implement it is they'll just have the majority group that has the power be like, well, we could do this person instead, but not
Mhm.
really giving any reason why they would
Yeah.
do that.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, that ends up being the case. They just go for charity in the end.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
That's
Later on, I mean, at tribal council, it's basically it's the same old. They're talking about the new tribal dynamics, and they're
mhm,
talking about what's happening and how the mergeatory affects the game and
mhm.
whatnot. Um, but it's a pretty simple vote. I will say the one thing that's interesting about it is it seems to be sort of a split vote situation, or
Mhm.
maybe if nothing else, the majority tribe has a lot of power there.
Yeah.
Um, It's a 7-5-1 vote. 7 votes on Charity, being Cedric, Chrissy, Joe, Camilla, Kyle, Mary, and Star. 5 votes on Say, being David, Eva, Mitch, Shaheen, and Charity. Once again, I imagine a split vote thing. Mitch was definitely not in on it, but he voted that way.
Mhm.
And then the one stray vote from Say, who voted for Cedric. Killing Cedric's perfect game, by the way. But beyond that, I don't know. I apparently Say has said that this was purely a vote out of spite. And
Yes.
I get it.
I believe I believe that. I
Yeah.
believe that they was probably let it into this plan and was just like, nah, I'm gonna vote Cedric. Which,
Yeah.
good for you, I guess. It would have been really funny if you went home because you didn't vote in your side of what you should have done. But voting Cedric was just exactly what I expected Say to do.
Yeah. I loved it. I will say getting 5 votes. She's already sort of like, a scorned earth type person where it's like, if you go against me, I will vote you out of pure spite. She keeps getting votes. Every tribal council she goes to, she has gotten at least 1 vote. So I just have to imagine, like, this is the most votes she's gotten at a tribal council. Like, is she just gonna hate everybody now?
I think that's kind of the hope, right? Because I think that if you aren't Fae, you want Fae to just get crazier and crazier.
Yeah.
Because then, Fae is not long for this world. She has been on borrowed time since the beginning. And so if you have, 2 people that voted on Say, you could potentially have be, something where it gains traction, even though Say is going scorched earth because of that reason. But people are also again looking for any reason. But if you have enough people where it's you then leave her in a mess where she's just kind of mad at everyone, or it's really randomized of who she is mad at, and you kind of insulate and diffuse her power of being able to ever catch traction somewhere. And so I think it's the best way to have done a split vote on Say is to have it be a lot and then just hope she loses it.
It's interesting because Say has been a shield for a lot of people in this game, mainly Cedric. But she's been a shield. And one of the reasons I think that she has been such a good shield is because of her sort of locking in and having a particular quote unquote enemy.
Yeah.
Most of the game that being Mary. I think there's something powerful to have, somebody that you're an enemy against. Like if I'm in the game and I'm sort of on the bottom and I'm like, I will not rest until Sarah is in the ground.
Yes.
And she is dead and gone from this game. I think there's something powerful when everybody else around you is like, well, okay, well, Joey's going to go against Sarah, so he's not a threat to vote me out right
distraction.
now. And Say is a great distraction. And I think if there's any time Say goes home, it's at something like this upcoming split tribal council where she can both be a consensus boot, but also be like, okay, well, this is our last opportunity to get her out before the jury or something like that.
Agreed.
So, yeah, we'll see if she's long for this world. But I do think the fact that she got so many votes is almost worse for her game because now, who did she pick out somebody specifically from there? Is she still going to be super against Cedric? What's going to happen? Yeah. What's going to happen? Well, who did Cedric vote for? Cedric voted for Charity, so he did not vote for Say. So he doesn't even have consistency there. He can't vote for the person he's voted for. I don't know,
he's trying to Pokemon his votes. I got to vote for everyone at least once.
Yeah. gotta vote them all. Yeah. One last thing I'd like to talk about is we have the split tribes for this upcoming tribal council. This upcoming split tribal council that's happening next episode. Do you want to go through them and sort of talk about who we think would be on the bottom and the outs of those? All right, let's do it. So the first tribe is going to be a purple tribe, and it is going to be Cedric, David, Camilla, Kyle, Mary, and Shaheen,
Mhm.
which I think is interesting because David, Camilla, and Kyle, all from the same original tribe.
Mhm.
Cedric and Mary from the Green tribe, and Shaheen by himself from the original
Yeah.
um, Logi tribe.
Yeah.
But Shaheen isn't good with Camilla and Kyle.
Mhm.
Really, to me, there doesn't seem to be a strong person on the outs there
Mhm.
between David, Cedric, Camilla, Kyle, Mary, and Shaheen.
Mhm.
Maybe it's Mary, honestly. I think there's a chance because Mary's not that close with Cedric. Mary's not that close with Camilla, Kyle, Shaheen,
He is
David.
close to David
Is she?
because they were on the swap tribe when David was the only guy on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's Cedric. I think similar logic, but I think that this is when Cedric goes because they see Cedric as the actual liability. Like this
Mhm.
is a scenario where your 0 vote finalist gets taken out just because like who else are you gonna take out? I think that I might have thought Shaheen, but I think from the not trying like I don't actually read either, but like if they say it in the trailer, it's not gonna happen. And so
Yeah.
as soon as Camilla was like, we like frame it on Shaheen, I was like, well, she's probably safe then.
Yeah.
And maybe it's
Yeah.
not. Maybe they're gonna pull one over, but like, yeah, I would guess Cedric initially.
Yeah. To me, the three possible options are I'm going to say Cedric's on the block, I'm going to say Mary's on the block, and I'm going to say David's on the block. I think David is a pretty good social player, and I think there's a chance, but I also recognize that David is in a position where he could be seen as like, well, he's a physical threat. He's in good with people. Why don't we just cut him now when we have the opportunity and we have the numbers to go against them?
Yeah,
I don't know if that'll necessarily happen, but I'll throw it out there.
yeah, I agree with that.
And then the other tribe is the Orange tribe, and that is the rest. That is Chrissy, Eva, Joe, Mitch, Say, and Star. So interesting, very different. Purple is like the strategic one. Orange is like the vibes one. Like the most strategic person on Orange is probably Star, which is interesting because if you
I would say
said that,
that.
or either way, like if you said that to me like 4 episodes ago, you said, yeah, the most strategic person is going to be Star on this particular swap. I would have been like, you mean the person who's just out searching for beware advantages and has
Yeah,
no
which
social
I think to
connections?
be fair, like I think Star is the most safe, or not the most safe, but like is safe on this because
Yeah.
I noticed in this last episode, like Star needs to lean into social game. Like Star is likable. Star is very good at like talking to people as people. Whenever she tries to be strategic, I'm like, what are you doing? Like at the merge feast, even they were like, oh well, Eva has an island, and then Star was like, yeah, I heard that, but like I didn't know that, and it's like you said it in front of 5 people, like.
Yeah.
I don't think Star should rely on her strategy. I think she should rely on her social. And so I think her being in the vibes setup is the best case scenario for her.
Well, here's the thing. Eva, Joe, and Star are all together. They all
Mhm.
seem to be working together. So I don't think any of them are going home. So that just leaves Chrissy, Mitch, and Say.
Mhm.
Mitch is a logical vote to go next
Yeah.
because he has voted incorrectly twice in a row now.
Yes.
But Mitch, something we haven't talked about, Mitch does have a block of vote advantage
Mhm.
that he hasn't used yet. I imagine if he's going to use it, now should be the time.
Yeah. I
So
don't
that
think
would make it, yeah,
but I agree. I think Mitch is the one that goes home because I don't think it's say here. Like I don't think you waste a very clear consensus on a split tribe boot unless like you really gotta like it works out well for strategy. But
yeah.
I don't think anyone is worth saving because I think if Mitch goes home, like no one cares that much. The person that cares the most probably is Chrissy.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think Mitch or Chrissy go in this tribe.
Yeah, to me, the world where Stay goes home is if Orange goes to tribal council first and they say, I don't want Say on the jury.
Yeah.
But if there's nothing to
Yes.
help that, if there's no way to control that and she's on the jury no matter what, then I would say, well, why would we get rid of her now?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I agree.
I will say, in the event that Orange does go to tribal council first, I think it could actually be Say. I'll
Mhm.
throw Say out there. as someone.
No, I completely agree. I think that's the scenario in which Say goes home, is if it's like, I'm doing everyone a solid, we're not putting Say on the jury.
And if not, I would say Mitch. So sort of, I don't know, maybe a cop out for myself there, but I mean that's how I feel.
I agree.
But yeah, let me ask just a general question. One last thing: who do you
Mhm.
think's gonna win? Who's your winner?
I think my winner pick right now is Camilla.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah,
Yeah, I think Camilla and Kyle are such a good duo. I think that Camilla is so smart in how she plays this game.
yeah,
I can't like I see her being, the Genevieve of it all, of like I can't think past like one season ago, but like she is the person that is like the biggest contender, and I can see it on the beach potentially getting to the point where they see her as a contender. And so I think that's her greatest risk, is that like we're getting this edit to be like kind of the fallen angel.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna stick out and say Camilla is gonna win and not be that fallen angel.
To me, the best thing that Camilla has done, and the reason why she's my winner pick right now, is she was able to take blindsiding Thomas,
Mhm.
coming up with this elaborate lie, this elaborate "we're not working with each other"
Yeah.
with Kyle, and getting a close ally of Joe and Shaheen's out,
Mhm.
and being able to turn that into allies, being able
Yeah.
to make it so that Joe and Shine actively want to work with Camilla and Kyle instead of
Mhm.
them working against each other. I mean, part of that is the very real conversation that they had in the last episode about their families and about their parents, which I thought was a fantastic scene. But
Mhm.
I mean, that's part of the game. That's
Yeah.
inevitably social. That's a
Yes.
social game right there. So yeah,
Yes. I agree.
no, I love Camilla. I think she's really really good.
Mhm.
And I don't imagine she'll be targeted because she's not a physical threat. If
Yeah.
she's going to be targeted, it's going to be near the end.
Mhm.
But I mean, you know, she does remind me, even beyond demographics. Like she reminds me a lot of Erica from Survivor 41. Like
Yeah.
she is this under the radar, smaller South Asian
Mhm.
Canadian woman, and
Mhm.
it's like, there are a lot of
Just keep
similarities in the way
thinking
that
about
they're
Survivor,
trained.
man. Like that's how you win.
Yeah, I mean, like there's something to that. Like maybe the perceptions from other people, like that's a whole nother conversation. But like
Mhm.
at this point in the merge, like she's probably the person who is not only the most well integrated, she's probably the person who's inevitably going to get the furthest. It's like her and Mary, just based on their threat levels, their
Yeah.
physical
Oh
threat
yeah, Mary's
levels.
my
Yeah.
other Mary's kind of my dark horse. Like I think Mary is so funny and so good. And
Mhm.
so I hope Mary goes far and could even win, but I think Camilla is
Yeah.
from what we're being shown, Camilla is more likely to win.
Mary's really fun. She was really funny this episode, by the
Oh
way.
my
She
god,
had
Mary is
some.
so that was one thing that like Mary is so funny. Mary when she was like Charity's like a turtle. I'm not worried about turtles. Like Mary is consistently one of the funniest people on the show.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. All that being said, I can't see Mary winning because she got voted out. She got all the votes against her and got saved because of something that didn't exist 8 seasons ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mhm.
So I can't see her winning because of that, but I want her to go far for
I
sure.
want her to go far. Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts, Sarah?
My last thought is I think it was Eva who said this, but when they were at Tribal and she was like, why is everything shaped like garlic? It's one of the funniest things that has ever happened. It was also right after Star like did the thing, like drop the marker everywhere. And
Yes.
so I was like already like, oh, that was silly and like laughing at that. And then she had said, like, why is everything shaped like garlic? And I was like, that is the weirdest thing to say. It is so funny. And also, everyone's getting into it. But whatever Jeff thinks Club Condo is, more power to him.
Yeah.
Like
I did not understand what he was
a
poking there.
mystery to me, but it's the funniest mystery. It's like when he said that like carnivals have scones, and everyone was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" But yeah, it was a episode that wasn't super good in terms of like any interesting strategic play besides what we
Yeah.
thought was going to happen, but it was hilarious. So
Mhm.
I'll take it. I'll take a funny episode.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for listening. Hope you have the greatest day of your lives after this. And thank you so much for Sarah for joining.
Thanks
And
for having me.
I'll see you later. Bye bye.
Bye.